Well, let's go to one more before we leave you here. This one's sort of fun. We're going to be doing I've done series on the book of Jonah. And we're going to publish a thing on Jonah upcoming sometime in our near future. But one thing, there's something having to do with marine science with Jonah, and of course that's the great fish having to do with Jonah. Now, I have told you before, if you've listened to some of our lessons, I have many times been invited to sit and talk with atheists. I have a lot of friends that are atheists and agnostics and stuff. But I've talked with a number of atheists, and I have actually asked them, why don't you believe in God? Why don't you believe in the Bible specifically? Many cases, they give me the exact same answer. When I ask them, why can't you believe in the Bible? They said, mostly it's down to one verse. There's one verse that we just can't accept about the Bible. And that gives us the strongest reason not to believe in the Bible. And this is probably not true of all atheists, but many atheists that I know of, and these are scientists, the ones I'm talking about here, very, very educated people, and they say it comes down to Jonah chapter 1, verse 17. Jonah chapter 1, verse 17 is the reason, I've been told this many times, it's the reason I can't believe in the Bible. So what's Jonah 1:17? Well, we know the story about Jonah being swallowed by a great fish. Well, here it is out of the English Standard Version. Let's see what this verse is that seems to be such a hang-up for so many people as being a science problem that they can't believe in the Bible. It says, "And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights." Right there. And they always point to the first part of that. The Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah. And the guy lives in it. He's in stasis. He's still alive. How in the world can that happen? There's no way scientifically possible, they say. So they say, not going to buy it. Won't get into it. Don't believe in the Bible because of that. So basically what they have told me is they can't believe this passage. They can't believe the Bible because the Bible talks about a sea creature, a fish, if you will, or whatever. Some people call it a whale, and I'll explain why they do that. But they don't believe that this could swallow a person and he stay alive for a period of time and then be spit out. Well, let's take a look at this scientifically, but also from what the Bible says. Now we know what the Bible says. Pointed a great fish. Notice it says, this is the English Standard Version, so we're using a word-for-word translation, and what we're getting here is the word great fish, not whale. It's different. But this is what we're going to get into, and you got to remember that to identify what this is, we aren't told. We're just told a great fish. We're not told. He doesn't say it's a sea bass or something, a Goliath grouper or whatever. It used to be called Jewfish because they do swallow people at times, but no way could a person live for 3 days, 3 nights in stasis in one. So we got to remember that the point of this whole story with Jonah isn't necessarily the identity of the fish. There's where a lot of people get caught up. What was the species of the fish? God doesn't give us any idea. Calls it a great fish. That's all he says. Instead, what God wants us to focus on is what is the story taking place here? What's going on? It's not the species that's important. It's what Jonah is experiencing. That's what's important. That's what you want to focus on, because this story of Jonah symbolizes what happened to Jesus. It's talking about Jesus' death. Jonah being inside the great sea creature, this fish, for 3 days, parallels to what Jesus is going to be crucified and put into the tomb for 3 days. And that's how this goes together. Matter of fact, Jesus himself draws this conclusion and makes this point. This symbolism here, he talks about it in the book of Matthew. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 40, let's take a look at this again. Out of the English Standard Version, it says, this is Jesus speaking, "For just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." So we see the exact same thing. Jesus is taking, and by the way, you catching this? Jesus is saying this is a historical thing. He's not talking about some mythical story. He's talking about an event, because what he's going to experience is also an actual event. Historical. That's what he's doing here. Just like that, it's going to happen to me, and it's going to prove who I am. Now, is this against science? Well, we're not going to get into a lot of detail here. We'll do that in the Jonah series. But what are some possibilities of a fish? What possible fish could be out there that's able to swallow a man whole and contain him in stasis alive for a period of time? Well, to answer this question, there are a couple ideas that I have that we can put before you here. And possibly a very, very reasonable solution to this answer, this science answer, which is not that hard to come to. In Jonah, the animal is called, in an English Standard Version, a great fish. Now, go back, this was written in Hebrew, so go back and see what the word for great fish was. It's the word dag. Dag is a literal word meaning a fish, not a whale. No, it's not a whale. Some translations misinterpret this and have called it a whale. No, it's not the Hebrew word for whale. That's where you get the word. The word in Hebrew for whale is leviathan, where we get the word leviathan. That's what this is. And that is not the word that's being used here. And so this specifically says a fish. Now, even if it was a whale, there's only one species of whale that we have today that is capable of swallowing a man whole and containing him for time. There have been, on rare occasions, these things have happened back in whaling seasons. Sperm whales have an esophagus large enough to swallow a man. A blue whale, a humpback whale or whatever, their esophagus, even though they're huge in size, their esophagus is only a few inches in diameter. No way can a human go through that to get into, after the mouth, get into the digestive cavity. Can't happen. Sperm whales, you can. It's a tight squeeze, but it is possible to get in there. But the word in Jonah is the word for fish. It's not the word for whale. Even though some people say, well, wait a minute, I thought the Bible says it is a whale. Well, the King James Version, the 1611 King James Version, written in 1611, has the Matthew account reading this way. This is out of the King James. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Now, what is going on here is this talks about whale. But, that's the King James Version. But the thing is, this is written in Greek. The Greek word that's being used here in Matthew chapter 12, verse 40, is the word ketos. Now, ketos actually means, in its transliteration, the closest we can come to it in English, is sea monster. Though in some writings it is used for whale. That's probably why the writers of the King James Version in 1611 chose that for ketos. But the thing is, the ancient Greek does have a specific word for fish. It's called ichthys. The thing is, that's not what's used here. So it's not, basically, Matthew is not using the word for fish, though Jonah did. Here we're using the word sea monster, more or less. The New American Standard, which is one of the most accurate translations we have, has the animal being more correctly identified as a sea monster. Here's what it says in the New American Standard. For just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the sea monster, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So here you see we're getting a more accurate translation, a sea monster. Now, if the creature was a sea monster, what could it have been? Well, I believe one possibility is a thing called a mosasaur. Mosasaurs did exist. They were huge reptilian creatures that swam back during the days of the Ark and stuff like this, and before the Ark. I have a model of one I'm holding here. You can see it's reptilian in its structure. I believe that this is an animal that's actually described throughout the Bible as Leviathan. That's a lesson that we do on dinosaurs in the Bible, and we talk about this. This thing is gigantic. You have maybe seen one. If you've ever watched that franchise of movies called Jurassic Park, there's one of these where, one of the latter ones that was made, where they have a big pool, and people are sitting around the pool like at an amusement park, and there's a huge animal that's in there, and they are dropping large animals like great white sharks and stuff. This thing comes up out of the water and eats it and swims back down. At the end of the movie, it's the thing that kills the bad dinosaur, is a mosasaur. Those things did exist. We have fossils of these things. We know they existed. And it's an aquatic creature. Could this have been? This would be Leviathan, but it's not the word that's used, though this could possibly do it. Now, what its internal structure is like, we don't know. It's reptilian. That's all we know about this. Well, what else could there be? If it wasn't this extinct dinosaur, and I hope they're extinct, if it's not this extinct dinosaur, is it possible, just take for a moment, is it possible that God created a special creature just for Jonah? And that's why we have the little confusing text here. Remember, God's not trying to give us the identity of the organism, the animal. He's more concerned with what we're learning about the story. That's what's important, because it's a prophecy having to do with the Messiah. There's where we should focus, not so much like, well, I don't know if I can believe the whole Bible because God's not giving me the identity of the fish. It's not that necessary, but there are ways of explaining this in science. Now, if the creature was a fish, as it says in Jonah, it's definitely most likely a fish. What kind of fish can actually swallow a man and hold him for a length of time in stasis? Well, there's a fish that's called the giant or Goliath grouper. Used to be called Jewfish until just recently, because it's not politically correct to say that anymore. They're big sea basses, big groupers that do, in the oceans, they do swallow divers at times, but you can't, they only get the whole, like the torso, the head, arms, and torso is all they can enclose inside their body. And then they swim to the surface and they spit the person out, the diver out. There's been articles about this in like Skin Diver magazines and others talking about being swallowed by a Jewfish. I don't think that's it, because there's no way a person's going to live in stasis for a period of time. But there are some other things. Great white sharks. Great white sharks have the capability of swallowing someone whole. Big 25-footer can easily do that. We know that because we have found dolphins, intact dolphins inside of great white sharks with no mark on them. Huge dolphins. A dolphin is bigger than a human. And given the size of a person in Jonah's day, the average height of a person in that area, he's from the Galilee area, would have been around 5'4", an average man's height, easily fit inside of a great white. And it is scientifically possible to be surviving this for a period of time and still come out alive. It is possible. It's never happened as far as I'm aware of, but scientifically it is possible. But maybe it was something else. Maybe it was something called a megalodon. Now, let me just take you. This is dealing with sharks, great whites we were just talking about. And I want to show you here just for a second. I have the jaws of a shark. This is a, these are real. This is a, the jaws of a just shark. And the thing is about sharks, sharks lose their teeth frequently. And the reason they lose their teeth is God designed these creatures to have teeth that have overlapping teeth. And when a tooth starts to get dull, it just falls out. And you can see in the image here, there's other teeth sitting in the back. It would be under the gums and stuff. And they keep making new teeth. And these other teeth then, if I sort of turn from maybe to this direction, you can see that there's another layer of teeth. The ones out here get dull, they fall out, and then another one sort of comes in. Here's one that's partially coming in. This one here, it's not bent totally in the right shape yet. And they just keep like a conveyor belt of teeth coming out. So we have shark teeth. And you can go to tourist stores and places and find these frequently. Well, there is a type of shark that did exist called a megalodon. Its scientific name used to be Carcharodon megalodon, but they've changed that just recently into Otodus megalodon. And here is this is a museum copy of the size of one of their teeth. Now, what's fascinating about sharks is you can tell the species of shark by its teeth. God gave them all different types of teeth. And there's hundreds of species of sharks. They all have different types of teeth. That's why if there's a shark attack, if they find a tooth which comes off easily embedded in the victim, they can then identify what the shark is. They can also tell the length of the shark and how wide its jaws are. Marine biologists have discovered that if you measure across the length of the tooth and then the height of the tooth, there's mathematical formulas in nature that just God designed that we can figure out the size of sharks, how long they were and stuff. Now this one here is a tooth. It's a copy. This is actually a museum copy of a megalodon tooth. And you can see this thing is almost 6 inches, over 15 centimeters in length. This thing is huge. This one here would have easily gone easily 55 feet long. Huge. Its mouth of this one here would have been large enough to swallow a 15-passenger van. Swallow. Not bite and chew in chunks, swallow. There's a famous picture of one of these that used to be in the Museum of Natural History in New York, showing 16 adult men sitting inside the jaws. You can find it in some great books. There's an awesome book on sharks called Shadows of the Sea. You can buy it on Amazon. I have a couple of copies of it. I just find it fascinating. And it has that famous picture, but I'm sure you could probably Google it and see 6 adult scientists sitting inside the jaws of one of these sharks. I mean, sitting actually inside the jaws of a shark. These things were huge. Now, as I said, this one here that I've got here in front of you that you're seeing, this is a museum copy. Well, if there's somebody from Missouri who says, well, I can't believe it unless I see the real thing, okay, let's show you a real one. This was given to me by a paleontologist a number of years ago. This one here, it's a little smaller, but you can see it's a fossil tooth. You can buy these, like I say, in stores or on the internet and stuff. They're very expensive real ones. If somebody's selling you one and it's only like $150, $200, it's probably a fake. The real ones, they're very expensive if they're in good shape and stuff like this. But you can see this is a real fossilized tooth of a Megalodon. These things get huge. This one here is probably, as I measured this out and ran the formulas on this, this one here comes out to just under 50 feet long. So they are huge. So these things, well, I'll just leave that there. These sharks did exist. We know it because the fossils are here. They seem to be, because the shape of the tooth is very similar. This tooth here is very similar to what would a great white have. So that's why they put them in the same family first as great whites. And we know a lot about great whites. We know that they got at least 50 feet long. And if you watch Shark Week, they often have a couple of things about this. Matter of fact, they've made movies about Megalodon and stuff. So you've probably been associated with some of them, a lot of these fictional movies. But there are scientists that say that they have measured some of these and found fossil teeth that go up to almost 90 feet long. That would be very rare, but it does appear that they could get that length. 90 feet could easily swallow a bus. It could have been 15 Jonahs riding to Nineveh in that thing and all get swallowed at the same time. I am showing you an illustration here with different, this is just a simple picture. This one here is about, it's not super long, it's just under 50 feet long. You can see a great white, like shape to it and everything. And here at the bottom is an adult man diver, 6 foot like diver. And you can see, or 5'5" size diver as he's next to this. Even this one here, even though it's only 52 feet long, could easily swallow a person. We know these things existed, and this is a fish. Don't lose sight of that. These are fish. The Bible states in Jonah this was a fish, and it's large enough to swallow a grown man. Even though we hope they don't exist anymore. I mean, actually, the book Jaws was written to be not a great white as much as it was supposed to be a megalodon that was still swimming around. But anyway, they're just like great whites, only really big. But these things did exist, and they did exist, we know, in Bible times and stuff, because they were around. We see their fossils and stuff, and you can go to many places along the east coast of the United States and the Gulf of Mexico, and actually you can go almost anywhere around the world, you find these teeth. And the reason there's so many of them is because sharks constantly lose teeth with meals, and they're constantly replacing them. Lemon sharks will lose over 250,000 teeth in their lifetime. I'm glad I'm not the tooth fairy having to pop out a quarter every time for that. But anyway, we have shown you that this is not a scientific error in the Bible, Jonah being swallowed by a fish. There's definitely creatures on the planet that could have done this. The time frame might be what's messing some people up. That gets into something else. We'll have lessons having to do with the Bible times, or if you get a chance to listen to our our dinosaurs, evidence of dinosaurs in the Bible video, you can hear about that. But the thing is, there's mosasaurs, there's other aquatic reptiles that were around. We have sharks, great whites, we have megalodon. It's very, very feasible that there was some type of animal that could have swallowed Jonah. The Bible's not an error here. I do believe this has happened. I don't think the Bible's making a science error. No, I don't think that's what it is. So when you come across, as we examine oceanography today, and we find things when science and the Bible disagreed, like Matthew Maury was finding stuff all frequently, we've seen, and we will continue to see in the series, that science needs some time to catch up sometimes to the Bible and find out, well, we had it wrong. That's why science is constantly changing. The Bible doesn't, because it's perfect. It comes to us from a perfect God. You can trust this. So, science constantly change. The Bible consistently standing firm in truth. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson with us, and I hope you come back for another one. We'll be having some more lessons coming up with science in the Bible. We have some on astronomy, we have some on human biology, and others, and I hope you join us with those. But thank you so much for sitting with me and letting me show you some of the fascinating things here about oceanography. Take care, and God bless.